you're brand new to Mesh Mixer, it's important to understand just some of the very, very basic things that you're going to see across multiple tools. Okay, one of them is your mouse. Okay, what to do with the mouse buttons. If you do not have a scroll wheel, you're going to want to make sure you have one. I wouldn't recommend using a touchpad for doing any kind of 3D design in any program. Having a mouse like this is nice. Only thing better I can think of than that is like a space mouse to include with it that helps you to move things around. But this mouse has the three buttons. You have the left click, the right click, and then the scroll wheel. And then the scroll wheel, often you can also push down on the scroll wheel as a third button. Okay, so in Mesh Mixer, the right click, if you click and hold, that's how you can move the object around. You're not moving the object actually, you're changing what they call the camera view. So the object is actually staying the same. If I were to show you this grid that it's sitting on, notice that the relationship of the STL file to the grid has not changed. You're just, like raising that camera up to look down on the object or going down below. It's just how you're looking at it. You're not actually moving the object. Okay. Using the scroll wheel, you can scroll in and out to zoom. So you can zoom in on pieces, you can turn them, you can zoom in some more, zoom back out. If, let's say, you've zoomed in really close and you would rather look at the head, if you push down on the scroll wheel, you can drag something they call panning. So you have zoom, pan, and rotate. And so another shortcut when you're zoomed in on something and you want to see a different part, if we'd rather be up here where the head is to put your mouse over that part and type C, as in cat, on the keyboard, and that takes that one spot. And sometimes it's easier for me to actually highlight that one spot. So I've got my mouse hovering over this triangle. If I type C, see how that triangle ended up right in the center of the screen? So that's another way to get around. The other thing that I want to show you, and I'm going to show you this by bringing in a second rabbit, just so you have a reference to go off of. I'm going to bring in this rabbit. I'm going to type T on my keyboard to get the transform tool, and I want to notice there's a couple things I want you to see about this sphere thing. Okay, there's an L, there's a W, there's an S, and there's an A. And then there's this little thing in the middle. I just want to explain those things to you really quick. This one in this, let's start with the triangle. So this triangle here allows me to take this and move it right over to the side or up. Notice what it's doing is it's letting me move it along a particular plane. And so this one right here is parallel to the grid. Okay, if I could grab that, you can see it's moving just parallel to the grid, not down into the grid at all. If I want to move down into the grid, I can grab an arrow. See how this one, I can't move it anywhere but along the axis of the arrow. Same with this one here. I can't move it up or down, but I can only move it side to side. And then this one that I always call a pizza crust, because a piece of pizza looks like this and it has just the crust, allows you to rotate it. And if you reach up into here, see how now you can rotate it precisely. There's 45-degree rotation. And this is going in increments of 5. If you want different increments while you're hovering over it, go ahead and push the up or down key. And now, what are we at now? 2.5 increments. And now it's at 1. And now it's at point, like half, and that's about as far as you can go with it. But that allows you to get a little bit more precise with your calculations. Oh, and then you can go all the way to 10, 15, 45, and that's as far as that one will go. So that gives you an idea on some rotation and some moving around. Oh, and then scaling. This one here in the center, that little tiny white cube, if you click on that, the whole entire STL is going to scale larger or smaller. And if you only want to scale it in one direction, then you're going to grab one of these squares on the end, and that allows you to scale it in other directions. Okay, just like this, and that kind of gets us back to the original. So if you notice the position of these tools right here, these colorful arrows and triangles and pizza crusts and cubes and squares, right now it aligns to the rabbit. Okay, notice when I turned it, all of this turned with the rabbit. And that is because the L is checked. The L stands for local. Okay, local meaning it is in reference to the one object that you have selected. If you would rather always keep it, let's see here. I'm going to hit accept. For some reason it wasn't letting me check the W, probably because I had already changed it and it hadn't accepted. But notice with this one, this is on the world. W stands for world. So now it's referencing the same plane. So if you look at this plane up here, see how this is the same as this, with that line being the green, this line here being that blue, and this one being the red. It always stays in reference to the scene, the world. Okay, and notice right here the arrows aren't changing even though I'm moving the rabbit around. So these always stay in reference to the world. Okay, and notice I can switch it back to there and back to here. I don't know why it was not letting me before. All right, and then you have this S and this A. These relate to this thing you see right here. So snapping, if you enable snapping, notice that when you try to move your object around, notice that it is bringing up a grid that is causing it to snap in increments of what it says right here, snap step. Okay, so you can see right here. And the absolute versus relative has to do with the reference. So right now, if I start this, you can see it's sitting there at 0. And if I change that and I start it, see how it's going off of a different plane. Okay, it's like the world's plane. And so now right here you can see that I can move it right there, which is getting it back to, or no, that's not back to where it started, but it's going all the way to the center of the grid. Okay, I'm going to hide this one. So you can see right here, it's relative to the entire grid instead of relative to where you started. And so that is, I'm going to turn that back on. So this here is just these, but allows you to select it down here. So if you're moving and you're like, oh wait, no, I need to not be absolute coordinates. I want it to be relative. Uncheck that, and then you have that. But if you don't like this thing that keeps getting in your way, you can either uncheck it here or just check that, and then it goes away. What I've found through teaching courses is that often that's selected when you first do an installation, and or people accidentally turn it on, and then they raise their hand and say, hey, why is it doing it this way? Why is it's hard to see, and I can't make fine movements because it keeps wanting to hop over 5 millimeters. And so that gives you an idea on how to do that. So there's just kind of some basics of manipulating the scene that you're in and moving objects around. So hopefully that kind of clears up some things before we get started on all these other tools.